Frieren is my favorite show. I mean, the fact that my profile picture is Frieren and my channel name is literally Frieren with one letter replaced should give that away. But there's a good reason for it. The animation is phenomenal, the world building is so immersive, the storytelling and action scenes hit harder than my Asian parents when they need to, and the characters are...
何これアウラ自害しろ服だけ溶かす薬男ってのはねこういうの渡しておけば喜ぶんだよって先生が言ってた
それで一番の功労者はどこに行った
Every episode is perfect. However, many people dislike it because on paper, the show may sound boring. After all, the main adventure is already over, so what's left to explore? What more could there be to Frieren's journey? Frieren Beyond Journey's End is about Frieren, and her new journey with Fern and Stark after defeating the Demon King, as she retraces her steps and attempts to build new connections and understand others better. Throughout her 1,000 years of existence, she had become emotionally detached from the world, and this new adventure at its core explores Frieren's personal growth in this area. But this journey wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for one person. One that had travelled with Frieren and showed her many things during their mere 10-year adventure. One that managed to pierce Frieren's cold-hearted nature and left an everlasting impression on her memory. And that, of course, is Himmel the hero. For a character we've only seen in the flesh in like the first episode, he comes up often in Frieren's flashbacks and is the reason Frieren does half the things she does. Even years after their quest to defeat the Demon King and his death, his name is still remembered and talked about around the world. On the surface, Himmel may sound like your stereotypical hero, but the way his character is written explores this trope in a unique way. So let's analyze why Himmel is a hero and the importance of his character. Just a quick disclaimer, this video does contain spoilers for Season 1 of Frieren, so if you haven't watched it already, why are you watching my video? Go ahead and watch Frieren right now, it's so much better than whatever yap I'm about to go on. Anyway, onto the video. As I mentioned before, Himmel is the quintessential hero. He's kind, brave, has a fully erect moral compass, aims to defeat the big bad, and he cares for his friends. Now these traits aren't bad at all, but if you've consumed a decent amount of media, you'll come to realize how often protagonists of other shows share these traits too. But what makes Himmel different? Heroes are often reduced to only their big moments, the high-stakes fights, the tragic losses, motivational speeches, but Himmel defies this, because the show focuses on the smaller acts of heroism, such as helping villagers, completing mundane side quests, and simply enjoying life with those around him. This shift in focus redefines what it means to be a hero, by placing value on the little things that leave a lasting impact. Heroism is explored through Himmel in a way that flips vanity on its head and focuses on the little actions and the value they have. Throughout the original journey, Himmel often accepts side quests from villagers and takes his time to explore dungeons. When asked why he helps others, no matter who they are, he first says that it's because he's a hero, but then changes it to, maybe I do it for myself, because he wants people to remember him. His philosophy is, to live is to be known and remembered by others. And while he eventually does defeat the Demon King and it becomes his biggest achievement, he will also be personally remembered by all the individuals he has helped, and in this way, his vanity could be seen in a good light. Throughout the show, we also see flashbacks of Himmel obsessing over his appearance, like his diligence when it comes to statues. At first, it seems as though he's just preoccupied with his looks. He jokes about wanting future generations to remember how handsome he was, which Fruz was not impressed by. But then he says,
でも一番の理由は君が未来で一人ぼっちにならないようにするためかな。
何それ
おとぎ話じゃない。僕たちは確かに実在したんだ。
From this last bit, we see that Himmel's vanity is more or less a cover. The true reason for his vanity is to remind Frieren and the others that they really existed. And also I think his tenacity for his self-image is to look presentable for Frieren when he is no longer around. So while he can be seen as vain in many cases, it feels more like an expression of his love for Frieren, if you think about it. Another way Himmel differs from the classic hero comes in the form of a scene from episode 12, where we learn about the hero's sword, which is stuck in a stone. It is said that it could only be pulled from the stone by a hero who will drive off a great calamity bent on destroying the world. This is a staple trope, and as Stark explains, Himmel was the one who pulled it out. and defeated the Demon King with it.
Psych!
No, he didn't, because to Stark's confusion and dismay, the sword was still in the stone. Himmel had failed to pull it out. But you know what? It doesn't matter. As long as he defeats the Demon King, it won't matter whether or not he pulled it out or not. Instead, he uses a replica sword he received as a child for saving a merchant to save the world, proving that heroism isn't about destiny or being the chosen one. It's about the choices you make and the actions you take. This twist on the classic trope is both refreshing and emblematic of Himmel's character. Himmel might not have been the chosen one, but he chose to be the one who saved the world. Guess that's why they call him Himmel. However, Himmel isn't the main character of the show, and the reason we know so much about him is through memories that Frieren flashes back to. While Himmel is certainly an amazingly written character, his impact on Frieren is the real driving force behind the story as a whole. All the way back to episode 1, when we are first introduced to Frieren, she was expressionless 99% of the time, to the point where you wonder if they forgot to animate her expressions. But that 1% comes from that one scene, right after the original gang went on a final trip together to see the stars, with Himmel reminiscing about his adventures and pointing out Frieren in particular. Himmel dies. At first, Frieren was expressionless as always. But then as she watches each scoop of dirt get dumped onto Himmel's coffin, flashbacks of their 10-year adventure flooded her head, and she starts crying, saying,
なんでもっと知ろうと思わなかったんだろう。
This quote perfectly sets up the rest of the series and conveys Frieren's regret for the first time. Being an elf, her lifespan is closer to eternity, which is the reason she has never tried to connect with anyone, since they would all be dead in such a short time from her perspective. But Frieren realizes, as Himmel gets buried, that he was someone truly special, someone she wished she got to know better. And from this point forth, Frieren declares she wants to learn more about humans, and that was the catalyst for her new journey with Fern and Stark. The moments we spend connecting with others are truly special, but this was a foreign concept to Frieren for most of her life. Himmel, however, was the one who subtly introduced her to the value of those connections. Her tears at his funeral weren't just from grief. They were the realization that she had missed her chance to truly know him. This regret became the driving force behind her journey to understand others and cherish the time she has with them, and ultimately sets up the main plot, which involves retracing her original journey and reaching Ender, where she could talk with Himmel and the others one last time. Along the way, constant flashbacks of Himmel and their adventure together mirrors her current one, and contextualizes the show, giving a deeper meaning behind Frieren's actions and thoughts. An example of this is episode 13, titled Aversions to One's Own Kind, where a Haita reincarnation gets introduced. The main crew decide that having a priest would be a great benefit and try to recruit Sign. Sign is a genius and wanted to be an adventurer when he was little, but didn't, and now regrets this decision and feels as though it's too late to try. This creates a vicious cycle in which the more time passes, the more he feels it's too late. Frieren understands this very well due to a flashback to when Himmel tried to recruit her. Back then, she too used time as an excuse, saying it's too late now, and too much time has passed, time she can't get back. But back then, Himmel was the main character, and hits her with the
それがどうしたフリーレン。
私は今の話をしている。
Frieren mirrors this and embraces the spirit of Himmel to convince Sign to join them. She wanted to do what Himmel did for her back then, and be the one who gave him the push he needed to spread his wings and fly, which she probably wouldn't have done on her own. But it's what Himmel would have done. There are many other cases where Frieren does things solely because of Himmel, such as collecting spells because Himmel complimented her, even though she doesn't want to admit that it made her happy when he said that. Or when she spent 6 goddamn months trying to find blue moonweed to plant around the statue of the goat, because during a flashback, we find out Himmel had wanted to show her those flowers one day, and was just so fucking euphoric when she found them. And the cherry on top is the fact that she put a flower crown on Himmel's statue, which echoes Himmel's Riz game in the flashback. There are tons of other small examples, so I'll quickly run through them like that Chinese clothes advertiser. In the first OP, the lyrics reflect how Frieren wanted to understand the reason for the tears falling down her cheek, which references her outburst of emotion at Himmel's burial. The final verse wraps this up by saying that even if Himmel isn't with her now, Frieren will be able to find this reason, guided by the memories of Himmel. Time is measured in years after Himmel's death, which was a significant event to Frieren, as it marked the start of her current journey. When encountering the Einstein, a monster that uses illusions of people significant to its victim, Himmel was the illusion that showed up instead of Frieren's teacher, Flammen. And she ponders if that's because she has changed, yes. Also, Himmel tells Frieren to shoot him, which goes to show he's a hero even as a mirage. In her fight against Aura, Frieren disables her magic on the immortal soldiers instead of blasting them with magic because Himmel scolded her for it back then. Frieren understands now that Himmel had told her that because he wanted to show respect to each soul that was lost and forced the fight for Aura. Frieren loses a ring Himmel gives him and spends multiple nights searching for it. Funnily enough, the design on that ring actually meant eternal love, which Frieren haphazardly chose, and we learned through a flashback that Himmel knew this and basically proposed to Frieren, even if she didn't realize it. So technically, they've been engaged this whole time. The ring is a testament to how much Himmel meant to her, and the unspoken bond they shared. In the second stage of the mage exam, Frieren insists on exploring the entire floor of the dungeon because Himmel taught her that it's best to have fun while helping people. Frieren says quick goodbyes to Kraft, Sign, and Lorwyn and Kane, because Himmel said it would be awkward if they meet again. If you were paying attention, you might have realized that I've spent 5 minutes talking about Himmel's impact on Frieren, but also that it's through Frieren's flashbacks that we get to see his influence on her as a person. This may be obvious, but this show uses flashbacks to their fullest potential, and they add so much depth to the story by developing Himmel, linking between the original and new journey, and how Frieren learns from these memories of him to interact with those around her, instead of using it to show the same fucking emotion 18 fucking times. Now I want to swing back to something I said earlier, which is that Himmel explores the character archetype through many small acts of kindness. He helps others because he wants to be remembered, and that certainly holds up as Frieren discovers on her new journey. Werbel is a character I don't hear many talk about, but I like to think of him as Himmel if he was a bit of an edgelord. While his juvenile demeanor suggests that he's a sadistic scumbag, his actions reveal a core similarity to Himmel. In the last episode, we get a scene where Werbel explains this through a flashback. He looks up to Himmel because of his great adventures, but noticed that his elders were way more interested in how Himmel helped them carry some shit and helped around the village in general. But after his village gets attacked, Werbel goes,
"Okay, I understand it now."
Because all those amazing stories of Himmel defeating world-threatening demons had nothing to do with him or his village. But it was the less exciting adventures in Himmel's community service that had the biggest effect on his village, and it was because of Himmel's small acts of kindness that Werbel fights demons, but also helps strangers even if it's something minor. In the end, Himmel is remembered for these small acts of kindness, and inspired others to do the same, which is why he is so well known across the places Frieren visits. At the end of all this, Himmel is basically the second main character of the story, sorry fam, even though we see him mostly through flashbacks. He appears in most episodes like a fairy on Frieren's shoulder to contextualize the current scenario and creates change in Frieren's character, as she takes his advice to deal with situations similar to the past. Himmel is an anomaly of the hero trope, as the author deliberately doesn't show his biggest moments, but instead the little favors he does along his journey, which he does to be remembered by others. In fact, he is so impactful that he was the reason someone in real life stopped a knife attack, because if Himmel was there, he would have done the same thing. And that's just crazy to think about. Like, what other anime has this much effect on a person's life, aside from Demon Slayer? If this anime was a body, Frieren would be the head and heart, Ube would be the arms, but Himmel would be the backbone, connecting everything together through Frieren's flashbacks. Without Himmel, the story would lose its emotional depth and guiding spirit. He may not be the main character, but Himmel's presence is what makes Frieren's journey so profoundly human and beautiful to witness. If you have anything to add to this massive waffle, please do so in the comments. I read all of them, and please consider subscribing while you're down there. Until next time, whenever that will be, thanks for watching, and remember to treasure the time you spend with those around you. Peace.